My name's Zac Dingee. I run a solar sales company that does over $100 million a year. And today I want to talk about avoiding distractions. Very, very easy to fall victim to this one in the world today. There's a million distractions. If you open up social media, at any point, there's 1,000 things that want to take your attention away from what you're doing. And that is how, unfortunately, media companies and social media makes money, is by getting your attention, your eyeballs. And they pay billions and billions and billions of dollars to thousands and tens of thousands of employees to do that. So you are fighting a very, very hard battle here. And we are wired for dopamine. So all of that leads to, it's very difficult to not get distracted in today's world. So I have 5 tips or things that I try to do to avoid getting distracted. Some are short-term, some are long-term, daily, and some are like just your whole kind of life theory. So I'm going to talk about it today and show you how I avoid distractions as a 27-year-old that's engaged, training for half Ironmans, running an 80-person team, and just has a lot going on. And let's get into it. So first one, this one is hard. I struggle with this one. I'm assuming a lot of people struggle with this one. The first one I call closing the loop. So what does it mean to close the loop? If you're a CEO or you run a sales team or you run a department in a sales company, when you get to the office or the night before, usually you kind of make some kind of to-do list or you have some kind of agenda in your Gmail, your calendar, something where you have these things you need to get done today, right? And if you don't have one, usually it creates itself for you, so you just don't write it down, but it usually happens. When I have a to-do list, I want to close the loop, meaning if I have 6 things on my to-do list for today and I only complete 5, one thing carries over to the next day. And now I have to do that again the next day. So I didn't close the loop and complete everything I had to today. It carried over to the next day, and then I added to that list. And what that does is it reinforces to myself that I didn't get everything I needed to get done today. I only completed 80% of my work. And you do that for a long enough period of time, you start to become someone who only completes 80% of the work that needs to get done. So this is very hard to do because sometimes you just get busy and you got to be home by a certain time or do a certain thing and you got to rearrange your calendar. But I try to make 80% of my days where I close my to-do list completely. I have 7 things to get done, 10 things to get done, 25 things to get done, and I want to close out that list entirely. And this gets easier the more and more you do it because you get more and more efficient at completing your tasks, which leads into the second thing, which is saying no. I'm going to put in big letters, no. Very difficult to do, but this is why a lot of people do not close the loop, is because they do not know how to say no to someone. When you have a lot of meetings going on and you're kind of rising up the ranks, or you already are the CEO and you start hiring more people, there's a lot of distractions, a lot of things that you have to start doing. Typically, when you're growing and you're in that first couple years, you're usually doing the job of 2 people minimum, if not 3, 4, 5, 6 people sometimes. So that's very, very hard to do when you scale and grow. As you put people in place beside you or underneath you, they may not know how to do the job as well. And so they call that person that needs help, may call you instead of the manager you put in that area. That's a really hard thing to stop doing because you want to help them. I want to be the one to assist this rep, but I physically don't have enough time in the day to do all of that I was doing and all these new things I'm doing. So this is priorities, right? How to say no. That in itself is a skill set, but really what you have to do is list out what's important and what you're trying to accomplish and what your priority is at this season. And this is the thing, it changes. And as it changes, you have to reset expectations with certain people and realign your goal, your value, and what your day-to-day should look like. So for example, for me, in the sales position I was in, I went from number 1, an area manager, meaning I just managed one area, to then I went to a district manager. We called it regional, but same thing here. So I went from 1 office to at one point I had 5. So I went from area manager here to district manager here. I can't do the same thing I did with only having 1 office as I could with 5. I don't have 5 of me, I only have 1. Then I went down to becoming the director, and then I oversaw all the offices, which was still technically 5, but I had kind of a new role in what I was doing. And then last thing was I became the president. And now I oversaw everything, the managers, the sales reps, the outreach team, all of the above. If I was trying to still manage the same way I was here, the company would fall apart and crumble, or I would fall apart and crumble, because there was no way I could sleep if I did all the things for the one office as I did for the president. So how to say no in between this is you have to reset the expectations with people as you move up. You have to put people in position to take over that specific role that you were doing. And then the other part about this is when you're scaling up, you have to look at what is the most important thing you can be doing. When I was the manager here, what was the most important thing I could be doing was training reps / selling. So when I had one office and I had 5, 6, 7, 8 reps, the most important thing I should do on a day-to-day basis to create the most leverage was training a specific rep, working with one person to make them better. And the second most important thing I could be doing was selling my own deals. Because I not only, one, had to help other people, I had to also lead by example, right? You probably already know this message, but this is the difficult part. When you become here and now you have 80 reps and 6 managers that you're overseeing, the best thing I can do on a daily basis is not train one rep, because I have all these people, right? My best thing I could be doing here is recruiting for the company, recruiting for my offices, right? This is like, we'll call it marketing / recruiting, right? Getting the name out there, getting the brand out there, sharing with new people at scale though. I'm not recruiting one person by one person by one person. I'm running whole ads, Indeed ads, Facebook ads, where a lot of people are coming in, and I'm ciphering through that. The next thing is I'm having meetings. I know this sounds kind of redundant, but something that's really, really important in my day-to-day life is having meetings with different groups of people. So these 2 reps are having a problem. I got to get them together and break it up. There's a new policy update. I got to get all the managers together and explain to them how it works and what the new policy and updates are. I got to go talk to the operations side and figure out what new rules and things we have to do to reinforce certain behaviors we want. So like this becomes high level stuff, where this becomes direct one-on-one stuff. So you have to learn how to say no so that you can do the things that are actually important. And that's the thing you have to remember is you're not sacrificing and hurting this person for no reason. You're sacrificing by not necessarily helping this person or saying no to a meeting or a lunch or something that's a waste of your time so that you can replace it with this, right? And that's hard to do because you feel like you have to do this job, but really you have to do this job. So anyway, that's saying no. Very, very hard to do. It's a skill set you have to learn, but it will be challenging in the beginning. All right, so number 3 is distraction. And I know the whole point is how to avoid distraction. My point with this is you have to define and figure out what that actually means to you. So I'm gonna list some in a second, but let me just read it. A thing that prevents someone from giving their full attention to something. Very broad and generic there. Is there a such thing as a good distraction? Probably, but most of them are bad. 80 to 90% of distractions are bad. So this is what it means to be distracted or what a distraction is. Let's list a couple. Social media. A big one for everyone is social media. I do this. I think everyone does it. It's just to what scale. How distracted are you, right? It's not binary. It's not are you distracted, are you not? It's how distracted are you? So I think the biggest distraction for everyone is social media. I think that's like within the top 3 of almost everybody's list. It's a very hard thing to get rid of because like I said before in the beginning of the video, people pay billions of dollars and there's tens of thousands of employees at these companies with the one sole purpose of getting your attention. And social media is really, really good at that. The algorithm is literally meant to keep you intrigued. So scrolling for 20 to 30 minutes a day may be okay, but scrolling for 2 to 3 hours a day is not okay. So you have to limit social media use. The second thing that I know it's kind of weird and tough thing to talk about, but it is important, is porn. I think a lot of people are distracted by, and this could be, like this is a broad term, porn, but just women and going online and looking up things you're not supposed to look up, not good. Which leads to kind of the second one, is woman in general. Okay, having a wife, amazing thing, not a distraction, something you should spend your time in because you have a relationship, or a girlfriend or something of that sorts. However, chasing women or spending time with a woman you do not intend to be with is probably a major waste of time, because you don't intend to be with this person forever, so you're just spending time to spend it with them, right? And then second thing to that is chasing women or being out in bars or doing that kind of stupid stuff where you are just wasting your time and you're getting nothing back on your time, right? So that's another distraction. Let me give a couple more examples. Drinking. Talked about this in previous videos. It's very easy to, when you don't want to work, or when it's 7 o'clock on a Friday and you're finishing up work and you're going to go home for the day and you know you have work tomorrow and your friends are like, hey, why don't you come out and grab a drink? That you feel like, oh, well, I'm off of work so I can go do what I want. However, that bleeds into the next day and maybe even the next day if you drink too much. But you can make bad decisions when you're out and start to get distracted because now you're with the wrong people or the wrong group and you're focusing on the wrong things. So I know this may not seem like it if you're doing it on just a Friday night or just a Saturday night, but unfortunately it blends into a lot of other things. So I won't go all the way down this list, but the point is, for yourself, the definition of it, and then looking at your schedule and seeing, okay, what is taking my attention away from something that I should be doing? Should is up to you. That's your own definition, but you have to look at your calendar and think, what are the things that I'm not doing or what are the things that I'm doing that are a distraction? These are obviously very blanket ones, but you can go down the whole of like, if you're the CEO of a company, you shouldn't be doing the training or onboarding for a new rep if you have 4 managers, right? If you're the CEO of a company or you're the sales leader of a company, you shouldn't be the one running every single meeting. You should have people that run meetings too. So you get my point on this one. Number 4, success. I know it seems contradictory, but stay with me here for a second. Success, when you start making a lot of money, let's say you're a CEO of a company, you've been running it for 3 years now and you've been not profitable. Now the 4th year you're profitable. Now year 5, 6, 7, you're starting to make a lot of money, right? You went from opening up the company for 3 years, not making a paycheck. 7 years in, you have an extra $300,000 left over in the company for yourself. Focusing on that success is just as much of a distraction as anything else. Arguably the biggest distraction. If you remember in the beginning of Wolf of Wall Street, when he rolls up a $100 bill and does the line, and then he goes, enough of this stuff will make you feel like a superhuman. And then you're thinking he's talking about the drug, and he opens up and it shows a $100 bill and he's talking about money. That is very, very true. It is the ultimate, that's why they say money is the root of all evil. All these things they have about money is because it can control you if you let it. So having too much success can become a major distraction. And the way I prevent this is focusing on the inputs, not outputs. So I'm focusing on my habits, what I do every day, what my calendar looks like, who I'm helping, what I'm involved in, what new projects are we working on. I stay in the business enough where I'm occupied in the business and I don't start focusing on the money. If you start focusing on the money, you lose track of everything going on. You start thinking you're hot shit, your ego gets in the way, and you start to do things that hinder your success. So I think one of the hardest things for people when they finally get to that level is realizing it's not about the materials. Yes, those are beautiful and they're beneficial and that's why we do it. But ultimately, you cannot focus on them so much. It becomes a distraction itself. So success can be a distraction. Do not let it be by focusing on the inputs of the business. What can you do every day? What are you working on? What keeps you in the business? And lastly, this one I've also talked about before, outlasting. So you have short-term distractions, which are you take out your phone, you look at social media, right? You have medium-term distractions, which can be like you have a girlfriend that you know you're not going to marry and you're spending a significant amount of time with her that's taking away from work. Long-term distractions is like you're looking at a new business structure or model or maybe entirely new business every 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, or you're 3 years in and you go, ooh, I want to do that business instead. That is the Achilles heel of business, is looking at other people's businesses and thinking, oh wow, that looks like a good idea. Maybe I should do that. Look how much money they're making. You get in the business and the grass is not greener. We've heard the saying, but it's very, very, very true. Let me give you a diagram example. This is your cup, okay? Your cup is filled all the way with water. This whole thing is filled to the brim. This is your attention, your energy, the amount of resources and things you can do on a day-to-day basis. Let's say you're trying to start a business and 3 months in you start a new business, and then 3 months in you try a new business or a new angle or a new thing. This is what it would look like. This is your cup completely filled to the brim, okay? This is the next cup. You want to put in, you're like, you know what? I'm going to run this agency where I sell this product online. Let me put my 20% into this one. But then I know that because I run the agency, I can also run a website and sell merch. So I'm going to do that. But then also I'm going to put 20% there. But then also my friend told me you can make a lot of money in door-to-door sales. So I'm going to spend my weekends going door-to-door. I'm going to do that too. And then on top of that, I wanted to start my own podcast. Now you think you're starting here and you're putting your effort into these 4 different cups. And what's crazy is you think that by putting effort into these 4 different cups, you're going to have enough success giving 20 to 30% of your effort to each one of these to grow and to scale and to have any success in these businesses, when someone like person Y is putting all of their attention into one business and keeping it in that one business. They're not focusing on anything else. So someone who's going really hard in online sales or really hard in merch or really hard in door-to-door or really hard in any of these, you think you're going to beat someone by putting 20% when someone else is putting 100%, they're going to destroy you. And so this is so common because there's a common saying online, which is the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. But if you really do the research, they made their money in one avenue and then dispersed it to other things. That's fine. When you've been in business 10 years or 15 years, this is the difference, right? This is starting out a business and thinking that you need 7 streams of income. And this is somebody's cup who's been in business for 10 years. It's 10 times the size of your cup because they have all of this experience and knowledge. So now when they're 10 years in and they have a business that's doing $6 million a year or $20 million a year, well, now they have the resources and experience to go put it in other cups to be successful. Because now when they go and they want to fill up, they're doing a successful business here. This is all the way filled up, right? They're doing a successful business here. They might only do 20%, but the thing is 20% of their cup, their experience is bigger than this. So I know this is kind of I'm not an artist. I'm drawing here on a whiteboard, but hopefully this is making sense. If you've been doing business for 10 years, yeah, maybe it's time to go do the next thing. But if you've been doing business for a year, 2 years, 3 years, you haven't been in the game long enough to see the fruits of the labor, to see success. And unfortunately, in the world we live in today, even though we have AI and all these amazing things that make it happen fast, it still takes 3 to 5 to 10 to 15 years, depending on the business, to really see the fruits of your labor. And consistency and compounding effort is the true wonder of the world. You heard Albert Einstein say, compounding interest is the eighth wonder of the world. Same thing for compounding effort. If you spend, this is the best example is look at somebody's body. When someone works out hard for 7 years and they become jacked, like you can see they look huge, right? They can take 2 months off and their body's still gonna look great because they put in 8 years of effort. That's how this works. So anyway, this is the whole point I want to make here about outlasting. You have to stay in the game long enough and not get distracted to the point where you're jumping from business to business to business and you're spending your time, attention, energy all over the place. Someone with sole focus on one thing. Actually, I heard a great analogy that we talked about in the last video. Are you a strobe light or are you a laser beam? Are you on, off, onto this thing, onto that thing? Or are you a laser beam sole focused on one specific point? And so, to summarize this whole video and really give you the tools, this is what I do to be successful and the main things I focus on for not being distracted. There are certain things that I deem good that aren't a distraction. spending time with my fiance, working out, hanging out with friends, going and taking certain people to lunch. But then there's other things which I deem that as a full-blown distraction, and so I don't do it. So for you, you should find out based on this list and by your own definitions what it is that distracts you, and then figure out the new habits that you have to do to replace those distractions with something else that's actually gonna help you. So if you found value from this video, type below and tell me what distractions you're gonna be working on and getting rid of, and we will see you next video. Thanks for watching.